Theory Sangam. Our speaker today is Dr. V.G. Thomas, Professor of Mathematics at IJR Trivandrum. Today he is going to speak on source exponent problem. Dr. V.G. Thomas, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot to Manoj and Anupam for organizing this event. Actually, it is very nice. And thanks for all the other participants who are here. I would actually personally would like, I am very glad to see you all here. So let me tell you about the organization, and then I'll start the talk. So what I'll do is, first I will give a brief account of everything that's done about this problem. Then I will let you know about our results towards this problem. And then finally, maybe a bit of strategy, how to achieve this. And at the end, I will mention 3 open problems that would be of interest, revolving around this problem. So this is what I want to present today. So let me try the presentation now. Let me see the entire screen. Is this visible to everybody now?
Yes, it's good. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's begin, and let me at least tell you what the problem is about. Unfortunately, I cannot see you guys, so if there is a question or something, either Manoj or Anupam will have to let me know, because I can't see the screen. Once I present, I only see my presentation. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So what is Schur's exponent problem? So let G be a finite group. Then the exponent problem says, does the exponent of the Schur multiplier, or the second homology group, which is, second homology group of G with coefficients in Z, divide the exponent of G? This is the question. So answer happens to be no, and the no was already done in 1973. So there exists a group G of order 2 raised to 68 with nilpotency class 4 with exponent of H2 GZ being 8 and exponent of G is 4. Okay, so the problem is false. Well, modified question is, if G is an odd order group, does the exponent of H2 GZ divide the exponent of G? This is the modified question. Well, while working on some on this problem with my PhD, I have to mention again. Let me mention everything that I present today is joint work with my 2 PhD students, Ammu Anthony, who is now a postdoc in Israel, and Koma Patali. And all the results I mention today is joint work with them. Okay. So while working, or after almost finishing the work, I had started to feel that perhaps I started to work on exponent 5 groups, because exponent 3 groups is the problem is the exponent problem is true for exponent 3 group. So exponent 5 group I started working, and I had not written down, but I could see that 3 and 4 will perhaps 2 generator and 3 generator groups will go through. And 4 generator groups, I had a question about some nilpotency class of BD5, where BD5 is the Burnside group, and so I will take RD5, which is the largest finite quotient of a Burnside group. And for 4 generator, I had a question on the nilpotency class, and I had contacted Professor Vaughan Lee about it, whether the nilpotency class will be less than 24. If it was less than 24, I think I felt I could do it. Yeah, the exponent, but immediately square will come. I will tell you more about it later. So then I contacted, telling him what my, then I told him what my motivation was, and told him that it is about this exponent problem, and that I feel that it perhaps may not be true from 5 generators onwards. But after I think 2 weeks or so, he did some calculations and he came with a counter example. So answer is again no. So Vaughan Lee, he had communicated, it is a personal communication, and I think now it was on the archive. So there is a 5 group G of class 9 such that exponent of G is 5 and exponent of H2GZ is 25. So this was what I was, so he found a counterexample. Further, he found another counterexample for a 3 group. Now the 5 group is a group of order 3, I think 3 raised to 11,983 or some such number. So it's a very large, it's a very large group. Yeah, it is exactly 3 raised to 11,983. The other one, the 5 group, is 5 raised to 4,022 or 4,122. So both are very large groups, and the conjecture is false. So now we know that the conjecture is false for odd order groups and also even order. Okay. So the problem goes back to at least since 74. There was the latest one where I could find that the M.R. Jones had proved the conjecture for P groups of class 2. Everybody knows what a finite, when a finite group is powerful, this is the definition. And for powerful groups, Lubotsky and Mann had proved the conjecture for powerful P groups in this paper. Now, Moravec proved the conjecture for metabelian P groups of exponent P. Okay. So, as I said, I will first present what all, when this, not conjecture, when all this problem, exponent problem is true. So, I am presenting the results when the exponent problems is proved to be true. Moravec in 2008 proved the conjecture for group, proved the problem, exponent problem, not the conjecture. Sorry, it's not conjecture. So I should say proved the exponent problem that it's true for groups of class at most 3. So let me just again tell you, this is the exponent problem. From now on, exponent problem, does the exponent of H2GZ divide the exponent of G is what we are calling the exponent problem. Sometimes I'm writing conjecture, I'm sorry about that. So we are saying exponent problem. He proved this exponent problem for groups of class at most 3. He proved the exponent problem for groups of class 4 and of odd order, and he also proved the exponent problem for P groups of class at most P minus 2. Okay, so this is done by Moravec, and he also proved the exponent problem for potent P groups. These are groups which have good power structure. Gamma P minus 1 is contained in G raised to P. These are the kind of groups anyway. It has good power structure. He proved this exponent problem also for P groups of maximal class. So there is, and in a very recent paper, he proved that the exponent of H2GZ divides the exponent of G to the power 2. I mean, for class 5 and many. So he proved this for class 5 groups and some other classes of groups. So, and he conjectures whether this is true for all groups. Okay, so at the moment I have missed it. Here I should say he proves this for groups of class 5, this and some other groups. He conjectures whether exponent of H2GZ divides exponent of G to the power 2 for all groups. So this is a conjecture now. So whether it is true. So now this is a new conjecture. Okay, so let's call this as a conjecture, and it is written as conjecture in this paper by Moravec. He gives some classes for which it is true, and he conjectures that it is true for all groups. Okay. So our contribution at the moment was so he had proved for conjectures square. So for P odd, we prove the conjecture, meaning prove the problem, exponent problem. We say that exponent of H2GZ divides the exponent of G, not square, when P is odd. When we also prove that exponent of H2GZ divides exponent of G, which is the exponent problem for P groups of class at most P. We also prove this. Okay, this is something. I don't know whether this is blocking you. Okay, finite groups satisfying, finite P groups satisfying gamma PG contained in G raised to P squared. So we prove for this kind of groups. These groups were studied by Wilson. It has good power structure. Basically, if you note, most of the groups, classes of groups for which this is proved, many fall under regular groups. And this have good power structure. So one starts feeling that maybe groups with good power structure, maybe you can prove it. But it is, we can show that it is not true for regular P groups. So the conjecture is not true for regular P groups. Okay. Now, there is another line of research. See, the exponent problem, if you can't prove, then there is another line of research. See, this exponent, what can be this power? So, the line of research is this power depends on the nilpotency class. It is bounded by the nilpotency class, this power. So, that is what I am going to present next. So, let G be a finite P group of nilpotency class C, then exponent divides exponent of G raised to C by 2. Now here C by 2 has to be with a ceiling of C by 2. Okay, so he proves this result. So see, you can't prove, suppose in general, then what is the power? And this power depends on this nilpotency class, and that is what this result is showing, and it is precisely C by 2. So this was proved by Ellis, and later it was improved by Moravec. He proves that G be a finite P group of nilpotency class C, then exponent divides this and 2 times the floor of this. And this is an improvement for the other result after a particular, I think after C is 11 or something, it is an improvement. So that's another result towards this end. And then Nicola Sambone, I think he did his PhD from Haifa, or Technion, or a joint, I don't remember, Technion, I believe. And he proves that exponent, now mg, when I write mg, I mean it is that mg is isomorphic to H2GZ. It divides the exponent of G raised to M, where M is again the floor of this quantity, floor or ceiling. Yeah, I can check it and tell you. So this is what he proves. So now our contribution towards this is, here again I have to write ceiling. Okay, let G be a finite group with nilpotency class C greater than G, C greater than 1, and set this number. Here I have to put ceiling of this quantity. If exponent of G is odd, then this object divides raised to n. At the moment, let's forget this. What this is saying is exponent of mg. So this is the next statement. In particular, exponent of mg divides this quantity. This is an improvement to the earlier result. And let's forget this object right now for now. Here you have to read this as ceiling of this quantity. We also prove that if P is an odd prime and G is a finite P group of nilpotency class C greater or equal to P, then exponent, again you forget this group, what is here. Let's only consider the multiplier for now. We prove that exponent of the multiplier divides exponent of G raised to n, where n is this quantity. It is 1 plus the ceiling of this log. So you have to take ceiling of the log. Okay. So, yes. Now, that is about the exponents, the exponent, this here, exponent G raised to some power, this depending on the nilpotency class. Another line of research is if you have a solvable group with derived length D, then what can you say? And Sambone, in his paper, in this paper, says that if P is odd, then exponent of mg divides exponent of G raised to D. So this is bounds depending on the derived length. Okay, D is the derived length. So G is a finite group with derived length D. If P is 2, then this is the result. So we prove the same thing. If G, so we could improve for nilpotency class, we could improve the result here. Sambone's result we could improve. Sorry, this one. But for derived, I mean, when it is derived length D, we cannot really improve it. It's the same thing we get. So exponent of G is odd, then multiplier divides exponent of G raised to D. And if exponent of G is even, then this is, it's the same thing. So this is what we have so far. And one thing, okay. So the results are, I mean, I will not show the comparison. It's an easy comparison. Some of us had met at ICTS, I think in 2019 itself, and some of the results I had proved then. But one result which we could not prove is the following result of Moravec at that time. But now we have proved this result of Moravec too, and I will tell you the strategy. So I had tried to read this paper a long time ago, but at that time I, frankly speaking, didn't understand the proof for this result, the theorem. But now, of course, we have proved it. We have proved it with a strategy, and so now perhaps if I look, I will understand. But at that time, I remember not totally understanding the proof. So I will tell you the strategy of that. Now let me tell you what is the group G tensor G and G exterior G, G wedge G. There were groups, and I will try to introduce this group. So let G and H be groups acting on each other and acting on themselves via conjugation. The mutual actions are said to be compatible if this condition holds. And same for H. This is for all G and H. For all G, G prime belong to G, and H, H prime belonging to H. Okay. Here, of course, I have to parenthesize. So putting too many parentheses makes it very difficult. So how to read this G8, G inverse doesn't make sense because it's in the, G and H are two different groups. So this you have to read as G inverse acting on G prime. So that is an element of G. Then H acting on that element of G, because there is an action of H on G. And then G acting on that element of G by conjugation. So the group is acting on itself by conjugation and on each other by some given action. And the action is said to be compatible if this condition holds for all G and H. All G, G prime and H, H prime in H, H prime in H and G, G prime in G. A remark would be, I would make a remark here, it is sufficient to, if you know the generators, it is sufficient to check for the generators. Okay, so the non-abelian tensor product is the group generated by the symbols and these relations. Okay, and you can define only the non-abelian tensor product is only defined if you have the actions as compatible. Only then it is defined. If you don't have compatibility action, then there is some other product, similar product, which is also useful. But that is not what I will be using for this talk. Okay, so just again a remark: if you don't have this compatibility condition, then there is other products which are also it has some applications, and that is also considered in the literature. But for my talk here, in this talk, I will consider this compatible, this ones. But we will be in a very special case very soon, so you will not have to worry about this. Otherwise, in general, if you take two groups and actions, of course, as you see, this will not end up being compatible. So this is very specific. Okay. So now, if both the groups are the same and all actions are via conjugation, then the group is called the non-abelian tensor square, in which case these conditions are automatically satisfied. Because G and H are the same group, so G acting on H is just this, G8, G inverse. So there is nothing. So it is automatically satisfied, and then you don't have to worry about whether your actions are compatible once you have the same group. So, and we will be in this good situation so that you don't have to worry about this. Good. So let me see. I think I'm going fast, but that's okay. Okay. So yeah. So now we are, when both the groups are the same, then this compatibility condition is automatically satisfied. Then your group G tensor G is called the tensor square. Okay. Why it's going? So definition. Now exterior square. I want to define what an exterior square is. So exterior square is the tensor square modulo this subgroup which is generated by G tensor G. Okay, by that element, and that is the exterior square. Now I want to define the kappa map. So the kappa map is the map that sends, oh sorry, not tensor, here exterior. Okay, so that is typo, or yeah. So it should be exterior, G exterior H going to the commutator. In fact, you can define the kappa map from the tensor product defining like this. So if I put this as a tensor product here, then this is the kappa map, and there is an induced map on the exterior because the elements of this sort go trivially. So by universal property, you can mod out. So there is an induced map which is also well defined, and it is given by G exterior H to commutator. Okay. Okay. And the Schur multiplier, or let's say at the moment, which is isomorphic to H2GZ, a second homology group with coefficients in Z or Z, is defined as kernel of this. So it was proved that this are isomorphic by, there is an old paper in the 50s by Miller. So this is content of that paper. She introduces this and proves that kernel of this map is precise, I mean, isomorphic to H2GZ. Okay, so that is crucial for our computations. Yeah. Okay, now I want to define something called the Bogomolov multiplier, and that is nothing but you mod out the exterior square by this subgroup, which is nothing but the set of all elements like this, group generated by G exterior H, such that they commute. Of course, when they commute, then you can further mod out, and still it's a well-defined map. I'll still call that a kappa map. Why this? Because G exterior H is taken to the commutator, but here I am modding out by things that are already going to 1. So I can further have a well-defined map from G exterior G modulo M0 G to G prime, and the kernel of this map is called the Bogomolov multiplier. And I will, it's related to some rationality problem by Noether, and I will later tell you how it's related to our problem. Okay, good. So these are the definitions. Let me now go to a classical theorem of Schur. At the moment, let me tell you what the classical theorem of Schur I am talking about. So let G be a finite group. If the central quotient is finite, then the commutator subgroup is finite. This everybody knows, and there is a lot of literature. I mean, there is a lot of papers about it, and it's converse also, the converse of that kind of theorem. So here we are asking, let's, instead of order, can we say the same kind of theorem for the exponent? Okay. In general, we are not able to say. I mean, yeah, we cannot. But if we say, if we restrict, give some restriction on the class, suppose the class is less than or equal to p plus 1, then we have that kind of a theorem. Meaning, if exponent is kind of finite, then you have exponent is finite. Not only finite, it divides that. So it is like that classical theorem of Schur, meaning if the central quotient is finite, meaning if G mod the center is finite, then the commutator subgroup is finite. So we have this kind of a theorem. So, yeah. So we want to prove a similar kind of a theorem here. Let P be a prime and G be a P group. If the nilpotency class is less than, then you can say that the exponent will be having this relation. And as a consequence of this, you get quite a bit. So if a P group G has class at most P, that which I said that we are, I had showed this result earlier. Then the exponent of the multiplier divides the exponent of the group as a consequence of this. Because what you do is you take the covering group, this has class P, covering group has class P plus 1, and then just using the theory of, covering groups developed by Schur, you get this directly as a consequence of this theorem. Then groups of exponent 3, you also get as a, because groups of exponent 3 have class at most 3, and then again you can apply the same. Then metabelian P groups of exponent P also you get. Metabelian P groups of exponent P also you will get. Why? Because there is an old result or Meyer-Wunderlich which says that these have class at most P. So they have class at most P. So again, it's under this first. So metabelian P groups of exponent P also you have the same thing. Now, center by metabelian groups of exponent P. So that also there is a paper that such groups have class at most P. This is a very nice paper by Miller in the Transactions. I forget the year, but anyway, I can give you the reference. So this has class at most P. So again, it falls under this. So this also is there. And then there is something called P central metabelian groups. P central, by which I mean G raised to P is contained in the center. So this is a result that this has class at most P by kappa. So this again falls under. So all these classes fall under this, which falls under this theorem. So it captures a few things. So some of the results it captures. So sorry, yeah. Okay, so let me talk about the strategy. Okay, I think my button is not working. Just a moment. Okay, so let me talk about the strategy. Let N and M be normal subgroups of a group G. Then see Ellis. This was proved by Ellis that if you have normal subgroups of a group G and M is subgroup of N, then you have an exact sequence like that. So one of our strategies is to, once you have this exact sequence developed by Ellis, then you say that exponent of this middle thing divides the exponent of this extremes. So the job now is left to kind of estimate these exponents. Now, there are cases, suppose I put N equal to G itself. Then you get exponent of G exterior G divides exponent of M exterior G and exponent of G exterior M, exterior G exterior M. So I can put N equal to G also, and then I can get the exponent of G exterior G once I have estimated these two exponents. Now, why is it important? Please, I will tell you why it becomes important. I think why is it not going? Because we had seen, okay, I think if I go like that, it's not going easily back. So why was it important? Because once I have exponent of G exterior G, I automatically had, remember the kappa map, the multiplier was a subgroup of G exterior G. So once I have this divides these two things, and somehow if I can prove that this product divides the exponent of the group, then I have what I need, which is the exponent problem, which is exponent of the Schur multiplier divides the exponent of the group. So,
Vijay,
yeah.
Are these N and M related somehow?
Yeah, M is a subgroup of N.
So M is a subgroup of
Yeah.
N.
N and M are normal subgroups of the G, and M is a subgroup. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that I will not. Yes. Sorry. Yes. So yes, they are related, and then so the game is to play. I mean, by choosing M and N smartly. Many times you choose it as some term of the lower central series and things like that. So if you choose N equal to G, then this becomes exponent of G exterior G divides the product of these two. Now, why exponent of G exterior G is helpful? Because the multiplier by the theorem, by the kappa map and the theorem of Miller that I had shown, the multiplier is a subgroup of G exterior G. So I will get exponent of the multiplier divides this product of these two exponents. And once I bound these two exponents, product of two exponents, by the exponent of G, then I am through. So this is the game. Now, I want to mention also, I think my buttons are suddenly not working. Going back. I want to show something so I have to say is, okay, it does not going back somehow. Okay, so I think at the moment I have to go like this. Let me see if I go like that, will it go? Yeah. So here, the strategy to prove this is, in short, it's difficult to explain. What you do is you kind of estimate the exponent of the commutator subgroup. Now, that you do using, say, the collection process of Hall, and then some tricks like, there is some substitution tricks that you have to do, and using that you obtain this, and as a result of this you can get quite a bit. So here one of the main things will be the collection process. So you have to estimate the commutator subgroup, exponent of the commutator subgroup, and yeah. So that is what. So you use. Here. Yeah. So here you have to estimate the. So how is this helpful here? You take the group G of class at most P, then you consider the covering group, and in the covering group you look at the commutator subgroup of the covering group and estimate the exponent of the commutator subgroup of the covering group, and then this is how you get this result from this result. So that's how you go. Okay. Now the paper, which is groups of maximal class satisfy the exponent problem, meaning for groups of maximal class you have that the exponent of the multiplier divides the exponent of G. That we had earlier, I had reported, in 2019 we didn't have that. We had this last year, and that uses this simple looking lemma, which seems like it has lots of conditions and seems perhaps not so good because it has so many conditions. So it says if P be an odd prime and G be a finite P group with exponent G is P raised to N. Suppose G satisfies these three conditions, then exponent will divide exponent of G. And all you have to do for groups of maximal class is that groups of maximal class satisfy all these conditions, and potent P groups satisfy all these conditions. Then if you have groups of say class at most 5, groups of class 5, then 3 groups of class 5 also satisfy this condition. So there are several classes of groups that satisfy this strange looking condition. Again, this lemma tells you that somehow if the group has some power structure, then it looks like this. This happens. So several groups. That as a consequence. So then you don't need anything. And this lemma is very short. It's a very short thing to prove. Of course, we are using our main theorems here. So in that sense, if you want to prove, this is one of the ways to prove this, that exponent of the multiplier divides the exponent of the G. Why? Because one of the main applications we give is the groups of maximal class. And groups of maximal class satisfy all these conditions. And then potent P groups satisfy. And there are some other groups by Wilson that I had considered by Wilson, which I had mentioned earlier, which also satisfy this condition. And so we get this also. Now let me just tell, in fact, perhaps I have gone very fast in going through the whole slides very quickly, but let me tell you some of the open problems. Now, is it true that the exponent, is the exponent problem true for meta-abelian P groups? As you had seen, we had several results saying that it's true for, let me go back, this way I'm able to go. You see all these results? See, groups of exponent 3 have class at most 3. This is an old result, and hence meta-abelian, of course. So all these are groups of, it's our meta-abelian groups. You see, meta-abelian P groups of exponent P, center by meta-abelian of exponent P, P central meta-abelian groups, etc. are meta-abelian groups. So it is it is interesting to know whether it's true for meta-abelian groups. See, the commutator formulas, etc. are very nice. Expansion formulas are very nice for meta-abelian groups. So one would try to expect it is true there. But the point is, see, you are not able to, and the advantage here being it is bounded by class. You see, all of them have class P. For all this, class is at most P. Here, class is at most 3, and hence again becomes meta-abelian. So class is very much bounded. So point is, can we do this? Can we do so? So let me go back. I was not. Yeah. Is the exponent problem true for meta-abelian P groups? So this is very interesting, actually. At least for me and my students, this is quite interesting, and we don't know the answer. So meta-abelian P groups, we don't know. I have given you a list of things, meta-abelian P groups, but with some additional conditions, the exponent problem is true. The next problem will be a conjecture of ours. We conjecture for if G be a finite P group. So okay, first thing I should have mentioned is you can restrict this whole problem. Let G be a finite group, then is the exponent of the Schur multiplier divide the exponent of the group. You can restrict this to what we call P groups. It's very easy to restrict, where the standard argument is there by which you can restrict. There is a using the restriction map on, so you can restrict it to P groups. Okay, so that's why we are only talking about P groups now. So let G be a, so in general I can ask, if G be a finite group, then finite P group, then does the exponent of the multiplier divides P times the exponent of the group? All the counter examples so far that are there do not, they are not counter example to this conjecture. And we have proved this for class at most 7, and not only 7, we can prove it much more. We can prove this at least for much more class, much more higher we can go. So this is, we conjecture that this perhaps is true. We have the result for several classes, but well, in general, we do not know about this. So in fact, it will be very good to even be able to prove for meta-abelian groups this P times. Can we get exponent of the Schur multiplier divides P times the exponent of the group? So P is the prime, okay? Because I told you the problem, exponent problem, can be reduced to just finite P groups, okay? We do not have to worry about just, you can reduce it to finite P groups. So the P is the P for the finite P group. So does the exponent of the Schur multiplier divide P times? And we have results which at least class 7 we have done, and many more. I mean, till I will tell you later about, till what we can be at least till P squared, class at most P squared, or class at most P squared by -1, we can do one can do this. So you have a large class for which this is true. So the question is, in general, is this true? P times, can you do it? If you can do it P times, then of course this conjecture will imply Moravec conjecture, which says exponent of mg divides exponent of g to the power square. So if this is true, then that is true. Last problem that I want to mention is the exponent problem true for class at most 8. So see, the conjecture was proved to be false for odd order groups for group of class 9. For class 9, it is P times. So till class 8, is this true? We can prove the conjecture for till class 5, which I have told you. But 7, we only get P times. We are not able to remove this P for 7. And 8 also, we can of course get P, because I told you it is true much general. P times is true for much further. You can go further down the class. I mean, you can go till P squared almost. So, but is this without P, is it true for class till 8, including 8? Because for 9, it is not. 9, it is P times. That is so the counter examples known till now are not counter examples to this, and that is not the reason why we propose this. We have results showing that P times we can prove for a large class. So these are the three main problems that I would say, and maybe a few words about the Bogomolov multiplier. So see, Bogomolov multiplier is considered as an obstruction to Noether's rationality problem, which I at the moment do not discuss here. But so when I share my slides, I will write this maybe. So at the end, I didn't somehow I went too fast, and I thought initially that is too many slides already. So I didn't go much, but I will add this before sharing the slides. So Bogomolov multiplier, if it is non-trivial, then it gives a negative answer to the Noether's rationality problem. But what is its connection to the exponent problem? I'll tell you. If the Bogomolov multiplier is trivial for any class of groups for which you prove that the Bogomolov multiplier is trivial, then the Schur's or the exponent problem or Schur's exponent problem has positive answer, meaning it is true. Exponent of the Schur multiplier divides the exponent of the group if the Bogomolov multiplier is trivial. And Bogomolov multiplier is trivial has been shown for a large class of groups. In fact, if you take almost central extensions of almost all finite simple groups, Bogomolov multiplier will be trivial. So so for them it is true. So not only that, there are many classes for which it is true. And the strategy, as I described, is to go to the covering group or go to the exterior square, as I mentioned. And then you just estimate exponents. So this is the strategy. The second strategy is prove that Bogomolov multiplier is trivial for the class of groups. If you prove the Bogomolov multiplier is trivial for a class of groups, then the Schur's exponent problem has positive answer. Now, but that is not necessary. For example, Bogomolov multiplier is non-trivial for most groups of maximal class. P groups of maximal class, Bogomolov multiplier is not true for most P groups of maximal class. But for maximal class, it has been shown to be true. So it is not a necessary, of course, condition. And so this is the relation between the Bogomolov multiplier and the exponent conjecture. Triviality of the Bogomolov multiplier very easily implies that the Schur's exponent problem is true. So I think with this, I will stop and maybe take questions rather than I keep going. So I think I am little, I'm early, but I think that's fine. I mean, I think this three problems is what I will we are at least interested in. So I will stop at this.
All right, Vijay, thank you very much for this very nice talk. And I now invite audience for the interaction. Please ask questions, make comments or suggestions.
Vijay, you can stop presenting maybe.
Okay, I
Yeah.
think, let me see. Yeah, stop presenting. Yes.
Yes.
So yeah, I have one question here.
Yeah.
So you told that you were always like for one result you were considering the covering group. Then you were talking about the exponent of the covering group, right?
No,
So for-
commutator subgroup.
Sorry, commutator, exponent of the commutator of that covering group.
Right.
So for that you need the Schur multiplier of that class of groups.
Schur multiplier meaning we know only the exponent. For our purposes, we just need the exponent.
Okay,
We-
but if you want to know the covering group, you have to know the Schur multiplier of that groups also, right?
No. So
So-
see, Schur multiplier sits under. So Schur multiplier, so there is an isomorphic copy of the multiplier inside the what we call the center intersection, the commutator subgroup of the covering group.
Covering group, yes, yes.
So as soon as I estimate the exponent of the commutator subgroup of the covering group, I get an estimate on the exponent of the
Exponent of mg also. Okay.
that is the trick. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, another question I can ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
So for groups of maximal class, you gave these three conditions and then exponent problem is true for that thing. And then groups of maximal class satisfies those conditions.
Yeah.
So what type of technique you have used there? Do you know about the nilpotency class and all these things for this exterior square of that maximal class groups?
See, there is a very simple result. This is also due to us, I think, a while ago. So, if you have G has nilpotency class C, then G exterior G, you can get nilpotency class, and it is bounded above by C by
C
2.
plus 2. Oh,
C by 2.
Okay.
Yeah. So plus 1, C by 2 plus 1. So you can bound. There is a result. I can forward it. I think it is written as it's co-author with me, Guram and Manol Ladra, closure properties of non-abelian tensor problems.
Okay.
So from there we can get.
Okay, so you have estimated the maximum, what can be the nilpotency class of GOHG?
No, we don't need to. We don't need to. So what we do is for groups of maximal class, we just show that the groups of maximal class satisfy these three properties of the lemma that I stated. This is by standard theory of maximal class.
Yes.
You just use the standard theory, and then from the standard theory, this very quickly, I mean, within like say 4 or 5 lines, once you know the standard theory, it satisfies this. You just have to verify that it satisfies these three conditions that I stated. And then that gives you the conjecture or the problem, or exponent problem. Not only just maximal class, as I said, groups of class 5, and 3 groups of class 5 also satisfy that. Then there is something called potent P groups, which is groups where gamma of P, potent P groups is gamma meaning the terms of the
Lower centric, yeah.
Gamma P minus 1 of G is contained in GP. This kind of groups, gamma P squared, gamma P contained in GP squared, all this kind of groups satisfy these properties that we have given in that lemma.
Okay.
And from there directly you get it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Hi, Vijay, I have one question. So,
Yeah.
I mean, this is a little bit weird because you said that you start with a group and then go to its covering group and estimate the exponent of its commutator subgroup.
Yeah.
So what are the ingredients in this estimation? Like,
Yeah, ingredients are in one sense. So one of the main ingredient is, see, if I want to estimate the exponent of the commutator subgroup, the first thing I need to do is at least I need to estimate how. Suppose I have commutator, simple commutator A comma B.
mhm.
I take what power will give you 1. That is first thing I have to do. In order to do this, you have to go to the Hall's collection process. Once you go through the Hall's collection process, then you have to kind of do some tricks in there. I mean, you have to play with some, there are some things like, if you have an identity which is true, holds for the group, any element, then you do some replacement and then get some identities from there, and then
But
that is a little bit a cumbersome process.
yeah, but the arbitrary large P groups and large nilpotency, the Hall compilation is quite cumbersome, as you said.
Yeah, it is very cumbersome, but somehow we could do it for P. I mean, that one could do for P+1. Yes.
Okay.
So it is hard. Yes, that's right. It's not easy. But it is. Yeah, one has to play with the collection process.
Yeah, thank you. Are there more questions or comments?
But ideally, of course, ideally, one has to get the proof, if possible, without going through the collection process. See, the collection process restricts your ability to go further. Meaning, you can do till, say, some class, 7, 8, whatever, but then it is not very good to go through. So that lemma is very nice lemma, where you don't have to do much anything. Almost you get it very simply.
Okay.
So some such lemma, if there is, and you can do it generally, like for example, I told you P times we can get for a, you need to use some part of collection process, but not really serious. But the theorem I said for P+1, you need real I mean, you have to really play with the collection process and some other tricks. Yes.
So Moravec mostly used tensor squares in his proofs.
So it is. See, he has some results with tensor square and some with covering.
Covering groups, okay.
Sometimes some result is given with both. I mean, he has some with covering and some with tensor.
Are there more questions? Yeah, so Vijay, you mentioned rationality problem of some kind. Is it something to do with invariant theory or?
Yeah. So whether the field of invariance is rational is the question.
Right. So you don't want to speak about that?
I have written a survey.
I see.
I have written a survey article.
Good. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So it is. Yeah, that is also very nice. Yeah.
Can you tell me I'll look up just year of publication.
Okay. So survey article is called "On Schur's Exponent Conjecture." It is written, and its relation to Noether's rationality problem.
Okay, I will look at. Thanks.
Yeah.
It is available on archive, I think.
Yeah, it is on the archive.
Okay, thanks.
It will be published in our proceeding, right? That's it.
Yeah, I think, I have to make some changes and send it to you.
Only this will be published in September, October, something like that.
Some changes I can make, right? There I have conjecture. See, it was a conjecture in some sense, and then with Vaughan Lee, when I talked, the counterexample came. So now I have to make it problem or something. So there, so there you can read about the.
Thanks. I'll look up. I was.
Are there more questions? So if there are none, let us thank VG for this very nice talk and very good